Hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Hendersonville's Housing Summit. I'm Mayor Pro Tem Jennifer Hensley. Mayor Barbara Volk was unable to join us this evening, but you're going to see her featured in the Faces of Housing video that's going to be played later in the program. In her absence, as Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to call to order the May 27th, 2026 meeting of the Hendersonville City Council and our second Housing Summit. I'd like to go over a few items before we dive into the program. First, we would like to thank Hendersonville High School and Henderson County Public Schools for allowing us to hold the Housing Summit here in this beautifully renovated space. Restrooms are located in the hallway behind the stage and access through the doors here at the front. If there is a need for an evacuation from the building, you may exit through the same doors as well as the back doors where you entered through the auditorium. Our wonderful partners, True Ridge, are here this evening providing interpretation services. If you prefer to listen to the program in Spanish, please visit the True Ridge table at the front of the auditorium. 2 years ago, many of us gathered in the same space for the city's first ever Housing Summit. At that time, we knew anecdotally that affordability was a growing issue here in our town, that housing choices were becoming limited, and that more of our residents, workers, seniors, and families were struggling to find housing options that they could afford. Even though cities of our size don't traditionally lead large-scale housing initiatives, the City Council did not shy away from the complexity of this issue. We didn't turn a blind eye to the challenges that our residents are facing, and we did not say that housing is someone else's problem. Instead, we listened, we learned, we brought experts and collaborators to the table. We committed to researching the needs, understanding the tools that we have as a local government, and creating a thoughtful framework in order to make a difference. Hurricane Helene created additional challenges and caused delays in our plan development, but it also highlighted the delicate balance of the plan and the housing issues in Henderson County. The storm reminded us how quickly stability can be disrupted, how essential, safe, and attainable housing is our community as a whole. It also showed us how impactful our actions can be when government, nonprofits, private sector partners, and residents can come together to create solutions. Local governments may not have the legal authority or the resources to solve the housing crisis facing many communities across the United States, but I am proud of the commitment of our team and our many partners who work and have led to the development of the city's first strategic housing plan. Tonight, we are here to unveil that plan, update you on the progress, and move toward taking meaningful action that you will all see in the future. It is my pleasure to invite Council members Lindsey Simpson and Melinda Lawrence to the podium to share a little bit about the research and the work that has gone into this plan.
Good evening. I'm Councilmember Lindsey Simpson, and I just want to say how exciting it is to be back on this stage sharing about the work of our Strategic Housing Plan Steering Committee.
Good evening, and I am Councilmember Melinda Lawrence. Will the members of our committee please stand and be recognized for the work you have accomplished?
Come on.
Come on.
The strength of this plan is a testament to your commitment to improving the quality of life in Hendersonville and Henderson County. This group of volunteers represents a cross-section of the community, including nonprofits, industry reps, lenders, legal service providers, housing advocates, and government. They were appointed by our council, and Mayor Pro Tem Hensley and I were both honored to serve as council liaisons to the committee. This group helped us with the initial Housing Summit to kick off our efforts, and they participated in workshops facilitated by national housing expert Shane Phillips. Shane's principles helped establish the pillars on which we've built the foundation of the plan. And although he couldn't be here in person for this evening's summit, we do have a message from him on the work of this committee and a challenge for all of us moving forward.
Hello, Hendersonville. 2 years ago, I came to your first Affordable Housing Summit with 3 goals in mind. First was to share lessons from my research on housing solutions and from my book, The Affordable City. Second was to introduce the 3S framework for local reform that I wrote about in that book, supply, stability, subsidy. Third, which I have to say was a much more challenging task, was to create a bit of inspiration that change is not just possible, it's actually desirable. It's an opportunity to build on the things that already make your community great. Having reviewed your new strategic housing plan, it's clear to me that you've taken those messages to heart and you're serious about preserving affordability for future generations. You took the 3S framework and ran with it, adding a fourth pillar, systems, which is all about community engagement and staff capacity to deliver on your commitments. The plan includes clear objectives and specific, thoughtful metrics for evaluating progress, and it puts forth 10 interconnected strategies for delivering on those goals, drawing on the strengths and the unique contributions of residents, the public and private sectors, and local philanthropic partners. In my book, I present supply, stability, and subsidy as a three-legged stool for affordable cities, strong and resilient when all the legs are in place, and weak and fragile if any are missing. Not something you would trust to support your town's future. With 4 pillars, Hendersonville's strategic housing plan sets an even stronger foundation than I had imagined in my book. That's something to be proud of, and it's worth celebrating. But a note of caution before I go. Remember that a foundation is just a start. It's now up to the broader community, to all of you, to build on it. That's the hard part, but it's also the rewarding part. Now you get to turn those strategies into new and more diverse and affordable housing options, into healthier households and more welcoming neighborhoods, and into expanded opportunities. Your kids and future neighbors will thank you, and their success is your success too. Good luck.
Now, in addition to monthly meetings, our steering committee and other key community shareholders and staff took a whirlwind one-day research trip to Chapel Hill and Durham. On this trip, we walked through a new affordable housing development made possible through public-private partnership, learned about affordable housing policy and strategies at the UNC School of Government, and toured affordable housing sites made possible through a community land trust.
Developing the plan also included contracting with the UNC School of Government's Development Finance Initiative, known as DFI, to conduct a local housing needs assessment. We wanted the plan to be based on sound data, so our committee also relied on the Bowen study to evaluate and predict housing trends in our area. Next, we will check out a short message from researcher Patrick Bowen.
Hey, Hendersonville, this is Patrick Bowen, Bowen National Research. We've had the honor of studying housing in Western North Carolina for more than 10 years, including the Hendersonville area. And I'm very pleased to find out that you all have a housing plan that you put together. I did take a look at the plan. I think it has a good mix of land use policy recommendations, ideas on streamlining the development process, funding and financial considerations, education and communication ideas, suggestions to look both inward and outward for possible housing solutions. And I think the plan's specific housing production goals will be particularly helpful for the community to start setting housing strategies, policies, and ultimately priorities for the community and how it deals with its local housing issues. So very excited about this plan. We'll be watching it closely for what I am certain to be its successful results. So best of luck to you, and we'll be watching.
Now, we knew we wanted to look at more than just what the data was telling us. We wanted to hear what members of our community were actually experiencing. Our city council members went out into the community and held 5 affordable housing listening sessions and provided an online survey to receive public input. We heard from our nonprofit partners, the business community, developers, unrepresented population, senior citizens, and veterans, and our Spanish-speaking community members. These meetings could not have been possible without the collaboration of the consulting group, Fountain Works, and the support of True Ridge and El Centro. And we heard so many stories, but one that really stood out to me was a comment from a resident how terms like low-income housing can create a stigma for those who live in housing that has been subsidized. We have tried to be respectful in not only the strategies, but also in the terminology we use.
The public input confirmed a lot of what we thought we knew, and one comment kept coming up again and again. Folks were talking about how they work full-time with benefits at local nonprofits and businesses, and they can't afford regular housing in Henderson County. We also see affordability challenges within our own government workforce. We are working as council to provide competitive pay and benefits, but housing challenges are impacting all sectors. All of the research and community input was compiled by our Community Development Department and brought back to the steering committee, where they were able to establish the plan's vision statement and prioritize strategies. City Council unanimously adopted the plan in December 2025, and we have already started to take action. Next, we will turn it back over to Mayor Pro Tem Hensley and City Attorney Angie Beeger to take us through the plan.
Hello again, Hendersonville. Angie and I are going to give you a brief overview of the city's strategic housing plan.
The Strategic Housing Plan is not just a report that sits on a shelf. It's a roadmap, an actual manual, and a commitment to the people of Hendersonville.
Before we get into the big picture, let's make sure we are speaking the same language. So here are a few key terms. Affordable housing generally means housing costs no more than 30% of the house's gross income, including rent, mortgages, and utilities.
If a household pays more than 30% for housing, they are considered to be cost burdened. If they pay more than 50%, they're considered to be severely cost burdened.
AMI means area median income, the midpoint income for a region where half of the households earn more than half and half earn less than half.
And LMI means low to moderate income, generally households earning less than 80% of AMI, which the housing plan groups into categories 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Category 1 represents households earning below 30% of the AMI. Category 2 represents households earning between 30 and 60% of the AMI, and Category 3 represents 60 to 80% of the AMI. Legally, our plan must use AMI to determine who qualifies for assistance and what counts as affordable at different income levels.
Remember, the plan doesn't refer to any household as low to moderate income. We use categories. These categories are not just technical labels. They represent real people, seniors on fixed incomes, working families, younger workers, people with disabilities, and residents trying to stay in the community they call home.
As you can see, Category 3 household of 1 can make as much as $57,350 and still qualify for the affordable housing programs, and a family of 4 could make as much as $81,900.
But here's the important thing to remember. In Hendersonville, many renters, seniors, service workers, and families are earning far less than these median incomes and are struggling with housing costs. Now we want to highlight some of the data that went into forming the strategic housing plan.
In November of 2024, the city received a housing needs assessment specific to the City of Hendersonville from the UNC School of Government Development Finance Initiative, and that data tells a very clear story. First, housing is not just about whether or not someone can pay rent. It is also about whether the home is safe, healthy, and livable.
So our plan does two things at once. It works to create new affordable homes and preserve and improve the homes we already have.
So that includes owner-occupied rehabilitation, accessibility upgrades, minimum housing code updates, and programs that help our seniors and people with disabilities remain safely housed.
Here is one of the clearest signs of market pressure. As of 2024, rents in newer Class A and B multifamily properties increased about 25% after COVID.
And those newer properties are generally affordable to households earning more than 80% of the AMI, which means they are often not affordable to households with the greatest unmet need.
The needs assessment also shows that many older Class C rental units are nearly 50 years old, with a median year built around 1976.
Those homes can be an important source of naturally occurring affordable housing, but age often brings repair needs, safety concerns, and accessibility barriers. Even with those quality changes, vacancy rates in both newer and older rental properties are still very low, showing just how tight the overall market actually is.
And that is why preserving existing affordable housing is one of the plan's objectives. Sometimes the fastest affordable home to create is the one we prevent from being lost. This slide brings the numbers down to the household level. Among households with housing needs, the plan identifies several priority groups.
There are about 825 households over the age of 62 with housing needs, 550 families with younger than 62 with housing needs, and 500 younger individuals with housing needs, many of whom are in our local workforce.
Hendersonville needs at least 2,000 to 2,200 homes affordable to those categories 1, 2, and 3 households within the city.
Now let's talk about how the housing plan is organized.
The plan includes 5 goals, 16 objectives, 10 strategies, and approximately 48 actions.
And the strategic housing plan is a 5-year plan. The plan is organized around the 4 values, which are the 4 S's: supply, stability, subsidy, and system.
Supply means expanding the number and diversity of homes.
Stability means helping residents stay safely housed and preventing displacement.
Subsidy means using public, private, and philanthropic resources to fill affordability gaps where the market cannot serve households on its own.
And systems means building city capacity, partnerships, staffing, data tracking, transparency, and accountability.
Think of the 4 S's as the legs of the stool. If one leg is missing, the whole thing gets wobbly, and nobody wants wobbly housing policy. The vision statement for the plan reads, "We envision a community where everyone has a safe, stable, and affordable place to call home, where people take pride in where they live, where individuals from diverse backgrounds live harmoniously, and where a variety of housing options exist to meet the full spectrum of community needs."
That vision came from data, expert input, and our robust community engagement.
This plan is not something imposed on Hendersonville. It was shaped by Hendersonville.
The plan has 5 measurable goals. Goal 1, the city will grow its percentage of Henderson County households to 18% from 14% over the next 5 years.
Goal 2, the city will support or accommodate 2,200 permanently affordable housing units for categories 1, 2, and 3 households.
Goal 3, at least 45% of those new category 1, 2, and 3 units should be owner-occupied, supporting stability and wealth building.
Goal 4, the city will work towards healthier vacancy rates, 6% for rental housing and 3% for for-sale housing, so there is an adequate supply at all income levels.
And goal number 5, the city will incorporate transparency, public education, community feedback into each of the housing endeavors.
These goals are ambitious, but housing challenges this big require ambition.
And a spreadsheet.
The objectives turn those goals into clear priorities. The plan calls for a wider variety of housing options.
It prioritizes home ownership opportunities, permanent affordability, housing for people displaced by catastrophic events, and preserves community character, discourages displacement, and provides for mixed income opportunities.
It also focuses on reducing regulatory barriers to housing supply, prioritizing mixed use and mixed income multifamily, and allowing our residents, such as the elderly and veterans, to age in place.
The objectives also call for prioritizing naturally occurring affordable housing and preserving the existing housing stock.
Other objectives include policies that will encourage younger generations to stay and thrive in the city and to partner with our public and private community stakeholders.
The objectives also called for advocating for state and federal policy changes that give the cities more housing tools, building community support, supporting our local construction industry, and supporting infill housing as described in our comprehensive land use plan.
In short, these objectives say, build more homes, protect people, preserve what works, and make the system easier to navigate.
The plan includes 16 strategies and 48 action steps. We will hit just a few of the highlights this evening. Strategy 1 is develop long-term organizational structures for permanently affordable housing.
An action step in Strategy 1 that we're all really excited about is to establish a community land trust. A land trust is a nonprofit that owns land permanently and sells or rents the homes on it at restricted, affordable prices.
The Community Land Trust is one of the plan's cornerstone tools because it can keep homes affordable generation after generation.
Strategy 2 is education and communication to build public trust.
That includes community engagement tools to allow neighborhood feedback and input.
The community told us clearly that transparency matters, and the plan responds by making public reporting and ongoing engagement part of the work. Strategy 3 is zoning and subdivision ordinance amendments related to housing.
This is where we talk about increasing allowable density in appropriate places. The strategy is not density for density's sake, it's a housing choice in the right places with attention to the infrastructure and the community character.
Another action step for Strategy 3 is creating affordability incentives and permitting more housing types such as manufactured homes, modular homes, and tiny homes. Strategy 4 is improving city policies and processes.
That means reducing some of the approval timelines because every month of delay increases cost, and those costs eventually show up to the rents and to the home prices. Strategy 5 is evaluating other ordinance requirements.
That includes updating the minimum housing code, which will not only preserve existing housing stock, but also help residents have a safe place to live. Strategy 6 is building the internal capacity of the city.
That includes hiring a housing coordinator, supporting staff training, and tracking development trends and KPIs or key performance indicators.
This is the system part of the plan, making sure the city has the people, tools, and data to actually deliver.
Strategy 7 is community character mapping.
That means working with neighborhoods to document local history, identity, design preferences, and priorities so that new housing can be context-sensitive and anti-displacement.
This is especially important in our historic communities where residents have raised concerns about gentrification, displacement, and loss of its cultural identity.
Strategy 8 is increasing funding capacity.
The plan calls for leveraging public and private grants and evaluating a housing bond.
Zoning reform may open the door, but funding is what helps people actually walk through it.
Strategy 9 is individual assistance programs for categories 1, 2, and 3 households.
That includes, for example, low-interest loan options and expanded owner-occupied rehabilitation assistance.
These programs help renters become homeowners. They help seniors stay in their homes, and they help preserve existing affordable housing.
Strategy 10 is leveraging public and private partnerships.
That includes low-interest loans for homeowners to build ADUs, or accessible dwelling units, for categories 1, 2, and 3 households, and developing pre-approved ADU building plans.
These actions provide direct support where it's needed to the community residents seeking housing.
The plan prioritizes each of the 48 action steps in short-term, mid-term, and long-term timelines.
Short-term means the work begins in years 1 and 2. That includes, for example, launching the Community Land Trust and beginning priority zoning reforms.
Midterms means year 3 and 4. That includes developing community engagement tools, updating the minimum housing code, and establishing a housing bond.
Long-term means year 5 and beyond. That includes community character maps and expanded owner-occupied rehabilitation.
The timing matters because this is a staged plan, and building the foundation and scaling goes up.
Plan implementation is where the rubber meets the road.
And I have great news about implementing the plan. We have actually already begun. To kick off the Community Land Trust, the city acquired 3 parcels out of foreclosure for the first brick and mortar projects to be developed for the trust. The trust will focus on owner-occupied housing for categories 1, 2, and 3 households to provide housing stability. More information will be coming about the Community Land Trust, so stay tuned.
The city has begun developing a housing dashboard. This is where transparency becomes visible.
The dashboard is intended to show the public where the city stands on our strategic housing initiatives, the KPIs, or the key performance indicators, and the housing trust activity.
The city has also implemented software which will track our progress with the strategic housing plan and produce a second dashboard that will provide transparency on the city's progress to the community.
That means residents should be able to see what is happening, what's working, what needs adjusted, and how they can stay involved. The city has already secured $4 million in grant funding and housing-related resources to support this work.
You can take a minute to look at some of the city's funding partners that are shown on this slide.
The plan's funding strategy is designed to leverage local, state, federal, private, and philanthropic dollars so that the city can stretch every dollar.
And we just really want to thank all of our funding partners for their support.
Finally, the city has already adopted a few zoning amendments to encourage housing supply and to support naturally occurring affordable housing. These efforts include allowing flag lots, counting smaller houses as a half unit to increase allowable density, and reducing the setbacks in some districts.
So what have we covered tonight? Hendersonville has a serious housing challenge, a city need of about 2,200 category 1, 2, and 3 homes.
But Angie, we also have a very serious plan. 5 goals, 16 objectives, 10 strategies, 40+ actions, the 4 S's, a public dashboard, annual reporting, and partnerships across the community.
The plan is about seniors aging in place, workers living near their jobs, families putting down roots, disaster-displaced residents recovering, and young people being able to stay in the community that raised them.
It's also about making sure that Hendersonville stays Hendersonville, a welcoming, livable community where growth, affordability, stability, and character can move forward together. We appreciate every resident who has shown up, who's filled out surveys, came to our listening sessions, and shared stories with us.
Thank you all for being a part of this work and for caring about your neighbors.
And thank you, Hendersonville, for moving us forward where everyone has a safe, stable, and affordable place to call home. Now, Councilmember Gina Baxter will walk us through what we can expect in the next few months.
Thank you. Hi all, I'm Councilmember Gina Baxter, and I am your newest council member. So much of this work had already been started by the time I was elected, but I am so thrilled to have been able to support the pieces of it that we've implemented in the past year and a half. And I'm thrilled to share with y'all the next steps that we have ahead of us. So our city staff has put so much time and work into all of the pieces of this housing plan. As you've seen, it's made of many, many pieces and parts. And as the Mayor Pro Tem acknowledged earlier, as we dive deeper into creating these housing solutions, the plan identifies the need for a dedicated employee to coordinate those strategies and to push the plan forward into the next phase. So in the recommended budget that we'll be voting on next week, we have included a position for a certified HUD housing specialist, and plan to hire a new team member if that budget passes to take this plan to that next level. As we continue moving forward with the land trust, we'll also have a community survey. The goal of that survey is to identify potential applicants for the program and to help establish parameters and to identify populations who are falling through the cracks or who are not being served by existing programs. And then on Thursday, August 27th, we will be inviting community partners to have organizational representatives come to a facilitated workshop. The goal of that is to solidify those relationships and to streamline our efforts to provide additional housing. If you represent an organization and you'd like to be a part of that and you're not already receiving emails from Allison, she's Allison here, you can pick up a card over here for her at the True Ridge table. Thank you, Melissa. We're also going to be exploring additional education opportunities for the public, like a community resource fair. We know that it's important for the community to remain engaged. And to that end, finally, we do not want this plan to be static or to sit on a shelf. It is meant to be a living document. So if you haven't already, please scan the QR code that's here or on the back of your program. There's a short survey there where you can give feedback, additional ideas, and subscribe to housing updates in Hendersonville. And with that, you have heard enough from us, so I'd like to turn it over to some members of the community for brief remarks. I'll ask Madeline, Meg, Connie, and Robert to join City Manager John Connett up here at the podium.
As you've heard, addressing the housing issues facing our city and county is a community effort. We wanted to bring up some people who are in the trenches working to expand access to housing in our community to share some brief remarks. And I am watching the clock, y'all, because we still need to get this crowd home for dinner. We'll start with Madeline and Meg, and then followed by Connie and Robert. Madeline, you're up first.
In the hot seat, huh? Hi, everyone. My name is Madeline Offen. I'm an attorney with Pisgah Legal Services, specializing in homelessness prevention and community and economic development in Western North Carolina. For those that don't know, Pisgah Legal Services has been providing civil legal aid in Henderson County for over 45 years. Our homeless prevention program focuses on keeping people in their homes through eviction and foreclosure prevention and other civil legal remedies. I've worked in affordable housing in Western North Carolina for over a decade and have seen that the need for safe and affordable housing for individuals and families affects people across all walks of life, all income levels, and in every facet of our community. Over the last 18 months, I've had the privilege of serving on the City of Hendersonville's Housing Plan Steering Committee. Addressing the affordable housing crisis is a multifaceted and layered issue that takes partnership from the whole community to solve. The plan that the city has developed is research-based and trackable, as you've just heard. Our committee heard from a variety of experts that spanned different disciplines so that the strategies really attack the housing problem from multiple perspectives. There are some really ambitious and creative goals, and I applaud the City of Hendersonville for stepping in to lead efforts in ways that will really help the community, including the clients that we serve at Pisgah Legal Services. Thank you. And thank you.
Good evening. I love the description of in the trenches. I think there's a group of people from housing assistance in the back of the room that probably fit that description better than I do. My name is Meg Lebeck. I'm the CEO of Housing Assistance Corporation, and I'd like to start by acknowledging the trends that have been described and that we see the same trends that are happening nationwide here in our community. It's the same affordability crisis. Here they get compounded by the hurricane and the loss of housing we experienced there. And I think if there were a silver bullet, we certainly would have put it in place already. What solutions we will have in Hendersonville will be incredibly creative and collaborative and local ones. The city's efforts and enthusiasm for housing solutions are laudable, and we are grateful for the many opportunities we have had to partner with them. Even before the strategic housing plan, the comprehensive plan for the city articulated 8 different ways the city planned to support housing in the community. The city, for us, has provided infrastructure, funding for our new affordable housing builds, and has reached for grant funding that has facilitated major rehabilitations to preserve affordable housing in the community and keep people in their homes. Housing Assistance Corporation has provided home repair and preservation in the community since 1988 and has been building new affordable homes and apartments since the mid-1990s. We've been in the business of disaster recovery since September of 2024. We are committed to improving the housing and the lives of individuals, families, seniors, teachers, first responders, farm workers, and so many more. We are grateful for the city's shared commitment to creative and collaborative solutions that will shape our path ahead. Thank you, and thank you.
I'm Connie Stewart. I'm the Executive Director of the Hendersonville Housing Authority. We manage 375 units in Hendersonville and 2 properties that are in Henderson County. We lost 50 properties in Hurricane Helene, and we are committed to building those back. We have rehoused those folks that lost their homes, and we take great pride in that, to know that we did give them stable housing again. We provide housing to low, very low, moderate income families. And I'm glad that I had the opportunity to serve on this steering committee, to have a voice and to collaborate with a lot of fantastic people that really know the housing business. And the city worked hard. They took a lead in putting these folks together to make a team from the housing world and other business leaders, so that they could guide us through this research, and it is research driven. The entire plan has some kind of extensive research that was put behind it. We know that there's not a simple solution to housing, affordable housing, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So I look forward to being a part of what's next coming up with this plan. Thank you.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Hooper. I am the Director of Housing Programs for UNC Source. At UNC Source, we administer the Housing Choice Voucher Program across Henderson and Transylvania County. And, every day our staff works closely with individuals and families to help them to secure housing. And so it's because of that work that I was given the opportunity to serve on the Housing Steering Committee. A few observations about serving on the committee. As a member of the committee, you get a first-hand glimpse into the diverse housing needs for the various housing needs for the diverse groups within our community. What's also undeniable, and what you've also heard about tonight, and what we're all familiar with at this point, is that the same 2 problems, lack of affordability and lack of inventory, plague both the rental and the home ownership markets alike. Another observation from my time on the committee is, as that is concerned, naturally when you bring together passionate individuals who are here to solve big problems, it's not uncommon that you might have certain moments of disagreement. And while we may have had, some, not much, those moments came, when we did have them, those moments came from a fierce place of advocacy for the clients and the families that our steering committee represents. And so what truly defined this experience for me was our underlying spirit of teamwork and cohesion. And so despite any different viewpoints, the committee consistently made an effort to find common ground and to keep our focus entirely on moving the housing agenda forward. I also had the privilege of joining the Hendersonville Our State, Our Home, Hendo for Housing team as a part of the Carolina Across 100. And what this is, if you're not familiar with Carolina Across 100, it's an 18-month UNC Chapel Hill initiative that brought together groups from all across North Carolina to share ideas and to brainstorm innovative solutions to their own housing challenges. And so, of course, we've already mentioned the community land trust model. That was a model that emerged as a successful model being employed in different parts of the region across the state. The City of Hendersonville has mobilized to implement this model as one step in the right direction towards addressing housing. And so these are the types of options that are meant to give community members pathways towards their goals, like home ownership, for example. And so, we support the city's efforts to move this housing plan forward, and we are excited to keep the momentum going. Thank you.
How about a round of applause for our partners? Thank you all for sharing, and thank you to all our Strategic Housing Plan Steering Committee members. And these are just a few folks that were involved in this process. As we've mentioned, we had lots of public engagement and lots of one-on-one focus groups, and we thank those of you who participated in our focus groups also. All that information has been included in our plan. We know the process has been a big time commitment, and we have valued your expertise and insights throughout the process. Through our States Our Homes program, which Robert mentioned, the city applied for a small grant that funded the video project you are about to see. One of the concepts in the plan is providing education and building community support. We'd like to give a big thank you to Nick, Lucey, and the Lucey Agency who produced this video, as well as the community members who were willing to share their stories to put a face on housing in Hendersonville. So let's roll the video.
Housing is one of the most basic needs that humans have, right alongside food and water. A home is more than just four walls and a roof. It's where we feel safe. It's where we rest and recharge. It's where we raise our families. It's where we grow and learn. It's the foundation for our health, our happiness, and our future. And most of all, it's where we truly live. And for more and more residents of our community, especially the people working here, the idea of finding affordable housing lies on shaky ground. It seems like it's more difficult to find, and it seems much more unattainable. One could argue that it's the byproduct of living in a desirable area. For generations, people have been drawn to Hendersonville in western North Carolina by its natural beauty. The region's strong service economy, growing industrial base, and large retirement community have also made it an attractive place to live, work, and play. From historic retreats and summer camps to today's new residents and retirees, it's long been a place people aspire to call home. And that continued demand plays a major role in housing prices today. This is about more than just housing. It's about families. It's about friends. It's about our neighbors. So we decided to ask our neighbors about the challenges they face in realizing the American dream. And the stories we heard were real, honest, and all too familiar.
Hi, my name's Noelle. I'm a teacher and I live in Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Hi, my name is Courtney. I work in the food service industry in Hendersonville, North Carolina.
Hi, my name is Jerry and I work at Mountain Deli, downtown Hendersonville.
Hi, my name is Mildred Goodman. I was born and raised in Hendersonville.
I'm Barbara Volk. I'm the mayor of the City of Hendersonville.
I went to Hendersonville High School behind me, and I graduated in 2020. And then I went to Appalachian State in Boone, North Carolina, and graduated with a political science degree in 2024. And so I figured I would just move back home to Hendersonville and get my own place. I ended up staying in Boone for a little bit because housing was a little bit tricky to find moving back. Hendersonville obviously has changed a lot in the last 10-ish years, I would say. After graduating, I figured I could just apply to an apartment complex. And looking at the apartments, there was none available for less than $1,300, $1,500, and you had to make 3 times the rent, have tax documents and pay stubs to prove it. There was either no amenities or little amenities, or you had to pay for parking, or there was a lot of steps in the process. And I ended up applying to a couple and I got denied because I didn't make 3 times the rent at all. It wasn't even close. And so there was a lot of hurdles to get through, even applying, let alone getting accepted into a place to live.
I have lived in Hendersonville my whole life. In June, that will be 38 years. There's absolutely been a change in the economy in Hendersonville. It started very gradually, and in the last several years, it has been dramatic. Groceries have gotten higher. The rent and the cost of living in general in Henderson County has gotten higher. My current housing situation, I am in an affordable housing apartment right now. We are buying a house, and there was nothing affordable in Henderson County that we could buy. So we are moving to South Carolina. At least for the first month after we move, my kids are still going to be going to school up here. And me and my husband both work on Main Street. So we're still gonna have to commute up here to bring them to work or to school by 7:30 in the morning, and then stay in Hendersonville until they get out of school at 3 o'clock in the afternoon before we drive the hour home to eat dinner and get ready for bed and everything else. So it's definitely gonna be a longer commute, a lot less time at the actual house together. It's gonna be more time in the car, more time on the road trying to get the kids ready and moving. It's probably gonna be a lot more stressful having to live an hour away from where we work.
I've definitely noticed a change in Hendersonville within the cost of living. I would say in the beginning, in probably about the first 7 to 8-ish years, it seemed gradual. Housing, well, whether it be apartment or house, every bit of it has jumped significantly to the point of you're really working paycheck to paycheck just to be able to make it. And on top of that, I mean, there's also just the basic needs, everyday needs. I mean, your electric bills, your water bills, the cost of groceries, gas, everything has gone up, but not in line with wages, unfortunately. So yes, it's been a lot harder in the last several years. I live with my girlfriend who thankfully owns her own house, so that definitely did help. But prior to that, I was living alone. I was in a house that I was renting out, and basically had to leave because the rent was gonna almost triple because the person that owned the house needed to be able to make ends meet on her own end. So I don't fault her for it one bit. It's just the nature of the beast. When I moved here 15 years ago, this was a town that I basically just fell in love with like day one. It felt like home, but just what I have seen over the last 6 to 7 years-ish, it does scare me that not just me, but other people can very easily get priced out of living in this area, which is a gorgeous area, and I hate for that to happen.
I've been in this home for a little over 20 years, I would say. My main things was my floors was rotting out, they was given away, and I didn't even realize I had a leak. It was a small, maybe like, I think they said 2 or 3 small leaks in the roof. I didn't have the cash money to get stuff fixed. And this was the first program I've ever heard of, you know, to do stuff like this. And so things will probably just have gotten worse.
Been here 51 years. Housing and cost of living, it's gone up. People want to come here. They have the means to come here. And it's really hard to find a place to live. If the city doesn't grow, if we don't continue to develop housing at all price ranges, everything is just going to get more expensive. When you've got just a very small number of places available, people will bid up the prices. So we have to try to balance growth with keeping things as much as possible the way people like them.
I wish people in our community knew that it is hard to find housing, even when you are hardworking and have savings or have a good budget. I mean, I have 2 jobs. I work 65 to 70 hours a week, and still, like I said previously, 50% of my income goes to housing. And while I do have some left over at the end of the month, it's going to groceries and bills and car payments, and so there's not a lot left over. As a 24-year-old working 2 full-time jobs, that shouldn't be the norm. And so I wish that people just understood that we are trying and we're not lazy and we're not asking for too much. It just seriously is an issue to find. I think that if things could change and housing could be more affordable in Hendersonville, it would kind of expand our city more in a full circle kind of way.
There's no way that most people understand how hard housing has, how difficult it has become to find housing in Henderson County.
I wish people knew that there is definitely an affordable housing issue in this town. I think it's one of those things that a lot of people probably turned a blind eye to. I'd be hard-pressed to find somebody that doesn't know it exists, but they don't want to acknowledge it or just don't want to discuss it, because I think there's a stigma behind affordable housing. And that stigma is low income, I guess for the lack of a better term, the deadbeats of just like people you wouldn't want around you. When in reality, we're all just the same people. We're all just trying to survive. But some of us can't afford to live in that nice house, but we have to stay in like a nice little studio apartment on the other side of town.
I met Mr. David, and he started bringing his workers in, and they went through the house and saw what all it needed. So they put a new roof on the house, and they did all the floors, redid the bathroom, and they redid the kitchen all the way through. New cabinets and sink and everything. And so it's really been a blessing, all the work they've put into the house. Real true blessing. And this housing assistant means a lot to me because, I I wish I was rich. I would love to buy one of these big houses and fix it up and help some of the homeless mothers, just small children that needed somewhere to live. That dream haven't come through yet. I'm not gonna say it won't, because I don't know. And some people think they should be living in mansions, It don't take that for me. And just give me a nice, comfortable place I can lay my head, fix me a good hot meal, and enjoy my family when they come over. That is what I want.
The city has developed a strategic housing plan. It's taken a couple of years to do that, but we're looking at a lot of different options. I wish people would realize that maybe they're okay, but not everyone is. We've got folks that would love to live here, especially younger folks with families, and they can't find a moderate priced house. I just hope everyone has a feeling of compassion for folks who would like to live here, who work here, who want to be close to where they work, and are really looking for a great place to live. This is such a wonderful city. They want to be here, want to be somewhere at least in the county. And I hope we can help them find some place to live.
Meeting this moment will take collaboration, creativity, and a community willing to come together to preserve not just houses, but the families, neighbors, and sense of home that make this place so special.
hope you enjoyed our video. Weren't our special guests, Courtney and Noel and Jerry, and of course Miss Mildred, great. They were great, weren't they? I want to give kudos to Housing Assistance Corporation, some of the folks in the room. They were the ones that partnered with us to renovate Miss Mildred's home, and it turned out great. So thank you, folks. Thank you, Meg, for being our partner. So it's a great project. So. That video will be available on our website and other city platforms to use. But we just want to put a face to the folks in our community who are looking, who have housing challenges. So thank you very much. So one of the things that keeps me up at night is a city council who changes things in the middle of things. So we were not going to take questions. However, I have been overruled. And so we have opportunity. The city council said that we are taking questions. So we're going to take, we got time for about 5 questions. And Deputy City Manager Brian Paula and I will have mics. Brian will go down one side and I'll go down the other. So if you have questions, we'll take about 5. And then we'll come back up. I'll come back up and we'll close it out, and I'll introduce and bring Mayor Pro Tem Hensley back up to close it out. So if you got questions, we'll do that and see if there's any questions out there. If not, we'll jump back into it. I'll start here and then.
I have an easy one, if you can believe it. I would like to see the map showing those parcels that you've bought. Can we just pull up that slide while we're here?
Jay or Angie? There you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, great. I just a question. Since we have a lot of construction going on of houses and apartments, can you kind of give us an update relative to how many apartments and homes we have under construction in the county, since you're looking at a number from 16,000 people who are residents of Hendersonville to 18,200?
Thank you, Reed. I'm gonna put the Community Development Director on the spot. We do have a dashboard for that. I think I have about an idea in my head, but.
I'm going to point to the housing dashboard that we've developed as the most accurate reflection of what's been approved. The housing dashboard is set up to include projects that are under review, in the process of getting approved, under construction, and complete. And so it gives you sort of a full picture of what's happening, thank you, Adam, in the community as far as housing units go. And so it also highlights the reality that not every development that's approved ends up being constructed and completed. So you may have some thousand number of units that have been approved, but in terms of those that actually go to construction and are completed, that doesn't always translate. So we currently have 742 units. This is, and you can look this up and find out additional information about it. 742 units completed, and under construction currently 1,800.
And Lou, that's since 2019.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add is we also have, I think we picked up another 700 or so, Reed, that are tied to single-family infill that may not be part of bigger projects. This is a moving target for us. A lot of folks ask that same question. So we're trying to make sure we're getting the most accurate data, but they're not all in one place. But it's something we're keeping an eye on. So.
Hello, my name's Nick Hill. I live in Hendersonville. I have 2 interrelated questions. One is I didn't see anything in the strategic action about funding for homelessness, direct street outreach. We have only one shelter in this community, the Rescue Mission, which is always at capacity, so I wanted to know more about funding for that. And also city ordinances around criminalization of homelessness. Is there any conversation around changes there, or just what the conversation is about that?
So I'll jump in unless y'all want to do that. So we do have a separate process going on now. We have brought together, some of the folks are in the room, a number of the nonprofits in the community to meet regularly with, and Jenny Floyd here, who's on our team, kind of runs that group, but we have a group of nonprofits that meet with city code enforcement, also police department, to talk about the unhoused generally. And so it's a team effort. It's a variety of strategies, including we've employed a social worker in our police department who is working with our unhoused, trying to get them back reunited with their families or places like that. So we're working very hard not to criminalize it, but at the same time understand that that we all live here, and it cannot be. We got to work together and live together, if that makes sense. So thanks. I'm gonna go back. I'll come back. I'm gonna go back here in the back, and then I'll come. Brian, you want to go there? And we'll go.
Hi, my name's Melissa. I also work with unhoused, and we have a significant number of subpar housing units in the area that are incredibly high. They're rented for incredibly high amounts. Hendersonville and Buncombe County have the highest fair market rent rates in the state of North Carolina, and the landlords know it, and they charge accordingly. So is there any idea of what they might do in order to help with that situation?
No real good plan related to, rent control. We do not have rent control in North Carolina. But one of the things that I think you saw as a strategy for us is a minimum housing code. And making sure that these homes are as safe as they possibly can be, and to work with our landlords and hold our landlords accountable to provide safe housing. Unfortunately, but we did talk about some things as it relates to the subsidy portion, and our council may have a response to that.
Am I? Okay. One of the other things that we are doing as the city is the CBDG grant, where we are rehabbing homes that are not meeting that minimum requirement. Through Hurricane Helene, also, we received some additional funding for the CBDG disaster relief, for the DR funds. And I think we're able to rehab now 9 additional, or is it 8?
So we have finished in partnership with Housing Assistance. They're the boots on the ground that are actually helping this work to come to fruition. But we have 3 that are complete and another 9 that are in the works of being rehabbed with funds that we received from the state.
I'm not sure, I see a Henderson County elected official, Commissioner Egoff here, but so, we can address in the city capacity, but there are other jurisdictions too that are able to seek those funds, and because I know that a lot of the minimum housing are in the county as well, and so I hope that they're applying for those same grants, because it's a considerable amount of money through the Helene relief that we could use to help our neighbors kind of build back up into something that they can stay in.
And one of the other things that the plan is built on is supply. When there's a lack of supply, just as you said, the landlords know and they can charge for what they want. But if we can increase the supply and availability of those rental units and provide more competition for those landlords, then that's market forces can drive those prices down, or at least help stabilize them. But unfortunately, we do not have, we do not have legal authority to do rent control in North Carolina, so we can't do that.
It's not rent control, sorry. It's they know what they're allowed to charge, and so they charge it, and they don't do anything. They get more than enough money to make their places livable, but they choose not to do that.
So something that we've talked about a lot is letting tenants rely on minimum housing code as a way to ensure their safety, right? If they're in a home that doesn't meet minimum housing code, which is the standard of living, which is the standard of livable housing that the city sets, they're entitled to ensure that their housing does. So that's something that is available to tenants and that we talk about using as a tool. As far as like what a landlord does or doesn't do with their individual properties, I think it becomes a little blurrier on a legal side, but if you're seeing folks who are renting homes that have substandard conditions, I mean, we want to know about those.
So since you said that, and we have partners in the room, and the partner over here is jumping up and down from Pisgah Legal, Madeline. So here you go.
If you know of clients that are facing that issue, please contact Pisgah Legal Services. Our main line number is 828-253-0406, and we can talk to them and would love to. We do that kind of work frequently in the city of Hendersonville and the county and all throughout surrounding counties. So thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. And that's why we're focusing on those type 1, 2, and 3 folks too, right? Those categories. We talked about that. So, Brian, you got a question back there?
Hey, my name is Amanda. I'm excited about the plan, but I found it interesting that the only time wages were mentioned was the gentleman who worked at the deli. So programming and initiatives alone won't solve the problem, so I'm just interested in hearing what can we do to ensure that people are paid a living wage and making sure that's an important part of the conversation.
So, unfortunately, city, again, very much like rent control, wages are outside of our authority. All we can do is, I think our video is our best opportunity to educate our folks and educate our businesses on the importance of housing and, paying our folks so they can live. So.
And John, I'll just add, rising tides raise all ships. I know our city council has worked really hard to bring salaries for city workforce up to living wages, a major target of our city council. And so if we continue to lead that path forward, hopefully others, that will create competition to bring others up as well. But thank you.
Other things that this city council is doing as well is we are very active with the Henderson County Partnership for Economic Development. Borg Warner just announced yesterday actually an additional $100 million economic investment in Henderson County, providing 378 jobs at average salary of $67,000 a year. And so while we're not addressing wages in our housing plan, we are actually cohesively trying to work on recruiting industry and manufacturing so that we can provide good paying jobs for our residents and our kids growing up here and our skilled laborers to be able to get a more affordable housing kind of status in this community as well.
I have two questions. One is, can you explain the community land trust in more detail? Is that private equity and subsidies from state and government? Who's going to own the land? So I want to understand that. And the second question is, on that dashboard, there's 2,000 units, plus we're trying to get another 2,000 here. Is that, so it's like 4,000 units roughly what we're talking about here in terms of growth?
So let me take the land trust first. The community land trust model that we're looking at is modeled after Chapel Hill, who has been very successful at this. The city is going to serve as the incubator for the trust until it becomes a viable enough to roll out onto its own. And that's the way Chapel Hill did it. But the model is that the trust owns the real estate, the dirt, and they do a ground lease. And the individuals own the home, own the structure. It's permanently affordable. It is priced at so that people, I think you heard us say that affordability is 30% of a family's gross income should be spent on housing. That 30% of their income serves as the basis to back out what they can afford to pay in terms of a house payment. That's how the sales price is arrived at. And they can continue to, they stay there, they live there, they get a mortgage, and they pay that price. And once it's paid for, the home is theirs. It's inheritable But if they could not turn around and sell it for a major profit, there's a formula that goes into how much profit that they could make on a resale, but basically the trust buys it back so that it remains permanently affordable and then could be sold to somebody else. The sales and help generate the funds. Chapel Hill gets grants. They have donations. They have something called inclusionary zoning that we don't have, that we're going to be looking at whether or not we want to do that. Not we, they. Anyway, to help come up with units, but there are a whole lot of things that go into it, but that's kind of a basic way that it works.
I just want to know if there's private equity involved in it.
So Chapel Hill, for the first time, undertook a private partnership where they partnered with the developer so that they got a certain number of the units that they would then own and then have to sell as affordable housing units, and then the developer had their units, that they sold for market rate. But the basic model does not involve private equity.
No, not, it is basically, he asked if you could sub-rent, sublease. That was typically,
you're
the
not allowed
idea
to do
is
that.
your people own the home, they're building wealth, just not appreciation with the market, so we can keep it
So-
affordable over time.
Yeah, no, the way through this model that wealth is built is not through a resale or a sublet. It is because if a young person were to buy a home there at 30% of their income on their starter job, that mortgage payment would never go up. And so as their salary increased, their housing costs would stay the same. So it builds wealth in income. That way is the way that market, that model builds wealth, not through a resale.
So why don't we move on to another question? I'm glad to do a sidebar here afterwards if we can, because I want to make sure we get a couple more questions.
Hello. By the way, thank you so much for this. This is amazing. More housing, please. But I had a question about it sounded that more housing did not mean more affordable housing, because you build more housing and then the market eventually is going to adjust and increase those prices of housing, and that's pretty much going to negate the goal that we're trying to do here. And as it relates to that, I wanted to ask the council and the team members if the city will reconsider loosening up zoning requirements. The price of a home, the requirements for permits and expediting permits and loosening up zoning is only 1% to 3%, and that is not going to fix the affordable crisis, but that is actually going to probably harm the neighbors that live in these communities. Thank you.
I can take at least the first part, which is, well, first I should clarify. Was the first part you saying that you do think that supply will help trickle down, or that you do not think supply will help?
Well, it sounded to me that building more housing creates affordable housing in the short term, but it does not fix the affordable issue in the long term, because actually markets are the ones that are going to dictate how much people are going to rent their buildings and ADUs and flagships and apartments. So that is not solving it long term. So maybe that may be a plan of, a 10-year plan or a 20-year plan. So that was a part of the question. And the second one was, I know there's been a lot of efforts on, loosening up zoning requirements just to build more housing. And I think those are potential things that could hurt the community now. And wanted to see if you guys will reconsider loosening up those requirements, because that's only 1% to 3% of the cost of a new home on average in North Carolina. And that $3,000 is not going to create for any affordability, but it may harm neighborhoods in future rezonings and different things.
Yeah, okay, I gotcha, thank you. So I think that the supply piece, I think you're right that it doesn't exist in a vacuum, right? Supply alone is not gonna increase affordability. It has to be part of, as we talked about way early on in this presentation, a four-pronged approach, which has systemic change, sustainable change, and then also some subsidy. So if all four of those things aren't working together and we're just increasing supply, I think I think what data shows us is that that's not a sustainable future. So I think to that point, yes, we're not saying, or the strategic plan is not saying that affordable housing can come if we just continue to build a lot of housing and we don't do anything to help subsidize, or we don't do anything to think toward the future about what those housing markets might eventually trickle down to. And then I would say about zoning text amendments, and y'all please jump into this one, that the zoning text amendments that council has been seeing and that staff have been considering and bringing to us have really been focused more on density that makes sense for the community more than permitting dollars or specific costs around the 1% to 3% that you might see in permits. So what we're really looking at is accessibility for folks who need maybe a parent to live on the property with them, and until we loosened up zoning text amendments and changed those regulations, weren't allowed to do that even though they owned that property. So we're trying to make more options accessible to people to find the housing that makes the most sense to them, rather than really focusing on that 1% to 3% permitting number. Is that accurate?
I think, like Councilmember Baxter said, there is a lot of factors that are going into this. And so I think one way that supply can work in our favor, even long term, is the fact that we'll have more available housing for folks. So like was mentioned earlier on this side of the room, the fact that we have not enough units for the folks that are here means people can drive that price up, and you're gonna pay it whether it's meeting minimum housing code or not, because you literally have no other choice. So if there are more units available, then they're gonna have, the people who own the homes that are renting them are forced to adjust their pricing to be competitive with the other houses or apartments that are out there. I also think from the zoning perspective, like Councilmember Baxter said, it's not just about the permitting fees themselves, but I think we all know that time is money. And so the longer it takes for someone to go through the process to develop a project, those costs for permits and fees are compounding because they're spending all of this money on design of the project and revision of the project and meeting with landscapers and water and sewer and our community development department. Like these projects take months and months and months and years upon years to just even get approved before they can even start building. And so that is the part of the time and the money that we are trying to save, because all of that extra time and planning and money that the developers are putting in, they're gonna pass it on to all of us. And I think the other thing too is making sure that we can build smaller units within our current city limits that are going to be a little denser, and I know that is a sticking point for a lot of folks, but I also think most of us that live here can agree that we love living here because of the nature that surrounds us and because of all of the beautiful landscape and hike and mountains and forest. And one way that we can avoid urban sprawl, which is us just extending our city limits and extending them, is by doing denser development within the city. So we can balance the needs of our community, but also make sure that we're keeping what makes Hendersonville special.
Thank you. I've got one last question right here, and then we'll close it out.
As a 79-year-old, I'm glad to see that aging in place, helping seniors age in place, is a objective of the strategic plan. I think that's a critical need in Hendersonville and Henderson County. Have any strategies been developed, or can you tell me what your thinking is on strategies to actually help seniors age in place?
I will actually talk about a project that we actually unanimously supported, and it's called Hawkins Point. It is an affordable housing project that is directly across the street from the Pardee Wingate campus. It's a beautiful building. I actually went to the grand opening and spoke to the residents who are living there now. It is a 55+ community for seniors, and it is an affordable unit that will stay affordable. So we are actively working with partners, housing assistants, and developers to be able to make those projects come to fruition. The City Council also adopted a resolution to send to the North Carolina Housing Finance Committee to ask them to consider that project for the tax credit project, which is what it was. Projects in the West typically don't score as high as a lot of the projects in the East because we lack demographics and our landscape is very different, and so being able to get those projects funded in the western part of the state significantly helps us with our affordable units, and specifically for our seniors. And so that is something that we are actively working on, that we just approved another one actually. When was that? Yes. So that's definitely a priority of ours that we've already done.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for the questions. As you can see, this is a very complex and difficult issue with lots of opinions and thoughts, and we don't have all the answers. We're standing up here, obviously, we don't have all the answers. It's going to take partnerships. It's going to take the community input. The question about zoning changes, some of it, frankly, is trial and error. But remember, zoning ordinances can be changed when things don't work. So that is why you have an elected body that makes those decisions, the process. So we don't have the answers, but it's a community. It's our community, and we want to make it a great community and continue to have a great. So it's an issue that we don't have the silver bullet for. But so thank you for your input about all that. So as we are concluding, I would ask Angie Beaker if Angie could come up, and I'm going to say a few thank yous, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem Hensley for closing us out. So this event tonight and throughout the 2 years of work could not have been done without a lot of folks that have not spoken tonight. So I want to specifically thank our tech team and our director extraordinaire, Allison Justice, Brandy Heatherly, Jay Heatherly back there on technology, Cody Dempsey is somewhere in here. I don't see him anymore. Oh, I see Cody. These folks have been in the building all day making the technology work. So thank you for that, and thank you for the job. We got a great team at the City of Hendersonville, and this could not be pulled off without these folks. But also, you would ask, what would a city attorney know about housing, right? I mean, well, Angie has been the captain of our ship for the last 2 years. This has been a pet passion of hers, a passion project. Really do appreciate her pushing us and driving us. The plan would not have come to fruition without Angie and all this work over the last. She's worked with Nick and Allison and a lot of folks that put the plan. So I'd like to give a specific round of applause for Angie for her work. And as city manager, we are hiring a housing specialist so that I can get my attorney back, okay? So at this point, I'll turn it back over to Mayor Pro Tem Hensley to close us out.
So seeing something like that video, especially as a mom, thinking about having to uproot my children out of the great schools that we have here in Henderson County to move somewhere else that is more affordable, breaks my heart. We have great schools, we have a wonderful community here, and so, these are my neighbors and they're your neighbors, and so just seeing all of this just brings more value into this community and why it is so special. After this evening, I hope that everyone here has a deeper understanding of the strategic housing plan and our next steps as the city, and hopefully you'll be inspired to help us expand safer and more attainable housing. As we leave, I'd like to give a final thank you to Hendersonville High School as our incredible interpreters as well from True Ridge for making this such a great event. I did see, and I see a couple other elected officials in the audience. This is not just a City of Hendersonville issue, it's a Henderson County issue. It is a Western North Carolina issue. North Carolina is the third fastest growing state in the United States right now, and so it's happening, and we've got to manage the growth, and we have to do it in a thoughtful way. But I want to keep my neighbors here, and I want the people that help make our lives better to be able to stay here as well. And so it means a lot to me to see the other elected officials in this audience as well, because we're a team, and we've got to all work together to make this this plan happen. I just hope that you can use our online portal and that you can get access to our dashboard and you can view the findings as well and stay engaged. Thank you so much for being here tonight. If the members of the Strategic Housing Committee and City Council would stick around for a few photos later, that would be great. And thanks again for being here, and we love you all.